This is the car that started it all. Before this car existed, the muscle car simply was not a thing. There was no such category. And then, in 1964, a rebellious young engineer quietly broke his own company's rules, dropped a giant engine into a small car, and accidentally invented an entire breed of automobile that would define America for a decade. Every muscle car that followed, the Chargers, the Chevelles, the Roadrunners, all of them, exist because of this one car. It was the king, the original, the godfather of them all. And yet, just 10 short years later, this very same legend would suffer one of the most humiliating deaths in automotive history, reduced to a sad, gutless little economy car wearing a badge it no longer deserved. This is the story of the Pontiac GTO, the car that invented the muscle car, and was then killed by the very world it created. And to understand how it died, you first have to understand the rebellious act that gave it life. Our story begins in the early 1960s with a Pontiac that was in real trouble. Back then, Pontiac had a serious image problem. It was seen as a sensible, slightly boring brand, the kind of car your grandfather drove. For a company trying to attract young, excited buyers, that was a death sentence. Pontiac had been clawing its way back to relevance by going racing, building a reputation for performance on the track. But then, in early 1963, disaster struck. The top brass at General Motors, Pontiac's parent company, suddenly banned all of its divisions from factory racing. Just like that, the very thing Pontiac had been using to look cool and fast was ripped away. The marketing team was left scrambling. How do you sell excitement and youth when your bosses just took away your biggest weapon? The men at Pontiac needed a new idea, something bold, something that could capture the imagination of young America without setting a single wheel on a racetrack. And the answer they came up with would break the rules in the most brilliant way possible. Enter John DeLorean, a brilliant and rebellious engineer who would later become famous for his own car company. DeLorean, along with engineers Bill Collins and Russ G., used to meet on Saturday mornings for casual what-if sessions, just tinkering and dreaming. During one of these sessions, they were looking at a prototype of Pontiac's new midsize car, the Tempest. And as legend has it, Collins turned to DeLorean and casually said it would take about 20 minutes to stick a big 389 cubic inch V8 into it. DeLorean simply replied, "Let's try it." There was just one enormous problem. General Motors had a strict rule. None of its mid-size cars were allowed to have an engine bigger than 330 cubic inches. The 389 was way over that limit. The project should have been dead on arrival. But then the team spotted the loophole that would change automotive history forever. The rule only applied to a car's standard base engine. It said absolutely nothing about optional engines. So Pontiac simply offered the giant 389 as an optional package, sneaking it right past the corporate rulebook. There was even a happy accident that made it all so easy. Every Pontiac V8, big or small, shared the exact same external size and mounting points. So dropping the larger engine was almost a bolt-in job. The muscle car was about to be born from a technicality. Now they needed a name worthy of this rebellious creation. DeLorean boldly borrowed 3 letters from one of the most exotic cars on Earth, the Ferrari 250 GTO. The letters stand for an Italian racing term, but honestly, that did not matter. What mattered was the sheer audacity of slapping a Ferrari's badge onto an American Pontiac. The car was launched in late 1963 as a 1964 model, offered as a humble option package costing just a few $100s. Pontiac's management was nervous about this strange new machine, so they cautiously predicted they might sell around 5,000 of them. They could not have been more wrong. The GTO exploded. Pontiac sold over 32,000 of them in that first year alone, more than 6 times their estimate. Young buyers went absolutely wild for it. Here was a car with a huge, powerful V8, available with a fearsome triple carburetor setup that was thrillingly fast, yet far more affordable than an expensive sports car. It was a rebellion you could buy on a budget. The GOAT, as it was nicknamed, was an instant smash hit. There was even a clever marketing twist. The team had the GTO officially homologated for racing in Europe, so a humble American Pontiac was now technically eligible to race against exotic sports cars. And it had just kicked open the door to a whole new era. The success of the GTO sent a shockwave through the entire American car industry. Every rival manufacturer looked at Pontiac's runaway hit and had the exact same realization. They needed one too, immediately. And so the muscle car wars began. Chevrolet answered with the Chevelle SS. Dodge and Plymouth unleashed the Charger, the Roadrunner, and the mighty Hemi cars. Ford and Oldsmobile and Buick all jumped into the fight. Every single one of these legends was chasing the formula that the GTO had invented first. A big engine, a mid-size body, and an affordable price aimed straight at young buyers. The GTO was the match that lit the entire bonfire. And through the mid and late 1960s, the GTO itself only got better. It became its own standalone model, grew sleeker and more muscular, and reached its absolute peak with the wild, colorful, and now iconic GTO Judge, fitted with fearsome ram air engines that made it a genuine street monster. For a few glorious years, the GTO sat on top of the world it had created, the king of a kingdom it built from scratch. But kingdoms do not last forever, and the same forces the GTO had unleashed were about to turn on their creator. By the dawn of the 1970s, dark clouds were gathering over the entire muscle car world, and the GTO was right in the path of the storm. The first enemy was insurance. As these cars got faster and faster, insurance companies began charging enormous premiums to anyone young enough to want one. Suddenly, the insurance bill on a muscle car could cost more than the monthly car payment itself, pricing out the exact young buyers the GTO depended on. The second enemy was the government. New, strict emissions regulations forced automakers to choke down their engines, lowering compression and strangling the very horsepower that made these cars special. The mighty engines were being slowly suffocated. And then came the final blow, the 1973 oil crisis, which sent gas prices soaring and made big, thirsty V8s suddenly feel irresponsible and out of touch. One by one, the pillars holding up the muscle car era were being knocked down. The party that the GTO had started was coming to a brutal end, and its host was about to suffer the most embarrassing fate of all. By 1974, the GTO was a shadow of its former self, and Pontiac made a decision that broke the hearts of fans everywhere. For its final year, they took the GTO name, the most legendary badge in muscle car history, and they stuck it onto a small, compact economy car called the Ventura. And here's the truly painful part. That Ventura was basically a rebadged Chevy Nova, a humble, ordinary economy car. Critics savagely mocked it, calling it nothing more than a Chevy Nova in drag. The mighty engines were gone. The only motor you could get was a small 350 cubic inch V8 wheezing out a mere 200 horsepower, a tiny fraction of the GTO's former glory. The car that once terrorized drag strips and started a revolution could now barely get out of its own way, needing around 9.5 seconds just to reach 60 miles per hour, a genuinely embarrassing number for a car wearing those 3 sacred letters. Buyers stayed away in droves. It was a sad, undignified end. One Pontiac magazine would later flat out call it a joke of a Ventura compact, ugly and stupid looking. And so, quietly and without ceremony, after the 1974 model year, Pontiac killed the GTO. The car that had invented the muscle car, the king that started it all, died a humiliating death as a tarred-up compact. The legend was gone, seemingly forever. But a legend this big could never stay buried for good. Fast forward 3 decades to 2004, and Pontiac finally decided to bring the GTO name back from the dead. This time, they reached all the way to Australia, taking a car from GM's Australian brand, Holden, and rebadging it as a new American GTO. And on paper, it was genuinely good. It packed a powerful modern V8, it was seriously fast, and it could absolutely back up the legendary name with real performance. But it was missing one crucial thing: soul. Fans took one look at its plain, anonymous styling and felt nothing. It looked like an ordinary coupe, not a reborn legend. The cold truth was simple. You could put a famous badge on a fast car, but you cannot manufacture nostalgia. The revival never caught fire, and it quietly faded away after just a couple of years. A few short years after that, in 2010, Pontiac itself shut its doors forever, taking the GTO name to the grave with it. The brand that gave birth to the muscle car was gone for good, and yet the legend of the original endures. Today, those early GTOs, the real ones from the 1960s, are worshipped as automotive royalty, with the finest examples selling for staggering sums at auction. People finally understand what they were looking at all along. This was not just a fast car. This was the car that invented an entire category, that started a revolution, that gave us every muscle car legend we love. It was born from a rule broken. It ruled an era it created, and it died a humiliating death as the world it built came crashing down. That is the incredible, tragic story of the Pontiac GTO, the godfather of them all. If you love these stories of legendary machines that rose to glory and fell from grace, hit that subscribe button, because here in the garage, we're always digging up the muscle cars that died too soon. Thanks for watching.